If Emory Jones is the Bearcats starting quarterback in 2023, let me answer that question for you.
Our Locked On Bearcats, your daily podcast on the Cincinnati Bearcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks so much for making Locked On Bearcats your first listen every day, free and available everywhere that you get your podcasts, including right here on YouTube. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and follow us to get an alert every time that we drop a new episode. My name is Alex Frank, your host each and every day right here on Locked On Bearcats. Today is a very special day because today is my mom's birthday. So, Mom, happy birthday. I love you, and I hope you are enjoying Locked On Bearcats today. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. A proud Bearcat, Debbie Frank, my mom is. So, today, Emory Jones is the topic. If he's the Bearcats starting quarterback, what does this mean for the Bearcats offense? What does he bring to the Bearcats offense? Does it change the offense? Does this mean a quarterback or multiple quarterbacks transfer? I'm going to answer all three questions on today's show. First, what does Emory Jones bring to this offense? He brings versatility. That is the biggest thing that he's going to bring to this offense. A Scott Satterfield offense typically has been led by a dual threat quarterback. Malik Cunningham at Louisville, and now potentially Emory Jones at Cincinnati. Emory Jones, we know throughout his career, has been a dual threat quarterback. And Scott Satterfield's offenses have been driven by mobile quarterbacks. Malik Cunningham, 1 year at Louisville, almost accounted for 70% of Louisville's total offensive yards. So, when we look at what a Scott Satterfield offense looks like, Louisville didn't have great offensive lines when Satterfield was there, but they had a mobile quarterback to mask those deficiencies. And you saw last year when Malik Cunningham was injured, how impacted the Louisville offense was. Now, Emory Jones has struggled recently. He didn't have a particularly great season at Arizona State. But when we look at his game logs, when we look at Emory Jones's game logs from 2021 at Florida and 2022 at Arizona State, we'll start last year, struggling season for the Sun Devils. But last year, Emory Jones, he didn't have a great season running the football. His first game was pretty good. 11 carries for 48 yards and 2 touchdowns. But then he had games where he had minus 17, minus 26. Now, those could have been because he was sacked. But go back to 2021, and you'll see that Emory Jones had a really solid season. In 2021, he had rushing totals of positive yards in every game. 74, 81, 77, 144, 63, 40, 86, 45, 62, 759 rushing yards on the season. 759. Passed for almost 3,000 and 19 touchdowns, including 6 touchdowns for the Gators in their 70-52 win over Samford. So, Jones has had some solid performances. Recency bias would suggest that you're a little concerned. But, and yes, I know Brandon Olson, if you've listened to him and Locked On Gators, you would know that he was not a fan of Emory Jones. But that's not to say he's going to be a bad quarterback. Because of his ability to run the football, because of his ability to pass, he just needs to be in a stable program. Arizona State was not a stable program last year. And you saw that when Herm Edwards was fired on the, I actually don't know if he was fired on the field, but he was fired last season. That was a program that was not very good last year. Florida also wasn't very good in 2021. Dan Mullen was fired after that season. That was the beginning of the end for Dan Mullen. But Emory Jones is now coming into a program where it's not the feeling of this could be the last season for this head coach. This is the first season. We don't know what it's going to be like for Scott Satterfield in year one. But the willingness of this university and this athletic department to give the Bearcats to give Satterfield a chance, I think speaks volumes to the program Jones is walking into. There is so much more stability within this program than there is, sorry for my allergies, than there is at the previous two programs that he has been a part of. And that is massive. That's massive when you think about it. The fact that you're coming in to a program that has had a great 5-year run where there's a great foundation in place. And I'm not saying Florida and Arizona State don't have great foundations. Florida, you've got everything. You're in the SEC. You're in the, you have resources. You've got a great fan base, great stadium. Arizona State, you're in the Pac-12, which maybe isn't as ideal and prestigious as the SEC. But you're coming to a program that has a rabid fan base, that has great support, that has a great athletic department, that is trending upward, that is now in the Power 5. So if you're Emory Jones, you're walking into a really, really good situation. And that could allow him to succeed at quarterback. Versatility is what he's going to bring. Stability is what he's walking into. And I'm saying that even with having not seen Scott Satterfield coach a full season yet. He hasn't coached a game, let alone a season. But I already know and think, and I believe this, that any transfer, Satterfield's not a transfer, any transfer, player, and any new coach, they are walking into a very stable situation because of where the program has been, where it's going, and those overseeing it. And Jones's versatility can finally be used. Jones transferred from Florida. I don't know why. Maybe because of the coaching change. Maybe because of Anthony Richardson. Probably that had something to do with it. But now he's transferring to Cincinnati because he thinks he can thrive in Scott Satterfield's system. And I still want Emory Jones to be the starter because of what he brings. Most notably, his versatility. All right, so we talked about what he brings to the offense. Does the offense change with Emory Jones as a starting quarterback? Well, we'll get into that after I explain to you how this episode of Locked On Bearcats is brought to you by Built Bar. So something exciting is coming to Built.com on April 22nd, Earth Day. I don't have all the details yet, but the excitement is real, and it's something you won't want to miss. If you know how Built works, they have the most incredible protein bars in the world, and they do these amazing flavor drops with unreal flavors in limited quantity. So, mark your calendars and head to Built.com on Saturday, April 22nd to be one of the first to discover what all the hype is about. I can't wait to see what this new flavor is. Make sure to use promo code LOCKEDON15 and you'll get 15% off your order. So, Emory Jones and the Bearcats offense. Does it change? Sorry for my allergies again. Does the offense change? I think yes, because it's a new system. But other than that, I don't see much change happening because we know Emory Jones is dual threat. Scott Satterfield's offense is designed for the quarterback to be the epicenter. And that's the case in most offenses. But in this case, when I say epicenter, I'm saying because of the quarterback's responsibility to throw and run. I don't see a much change because he fits the mold of a Satterfield offense. It is a new system. I mean, every offense you walk into, well, I shouldn't say every offense, but every new program you walk into, you're going to have to learn the offense. You're going to have to learn the playbook. So it is in that regard. But because, and I'm not saying Emory Jones is like Malik Cunningham, but I'm saying there's a very good chance that he is the starting quarterback because of his dual threat abilities. That's what I'm saying. Sorry again for my allergies. the offense won't change much if Emory Jones is the starting quarterback because he has the skill set to play in this offense. With Emory Jones, you won't need necessarily a great offensive line. What is going to be interesting to see is how he fares with the receivers. Ben Bryant's a little different because he's played with some of the receivers. Emory Jones has not. Now, if you're going off of Emory Jones' season last year, where he didn't run the ball very well, you might be concerned. And that's totally fine. But I'm saying based on what he did in 2021 at Florida, no less, and some of the games that he played that year. Number 1, Alabama, 18 of 28 for 195. He also had 77 rushing yards and a touchdown. Wasn't great against Georgia, but you look at some of the other games he had against Tennessee. That's where he was 21 to 27 for 209, 2 touchdowns, 15 carries for 144 yards. That's the kind of player that I want to see play for the Cincinnati Bearcats. What we got from Emory Jones from Florida in 2021. So again, Emory Jones is the guy who fits the mold of quarterback for the Bearcats offense. It's a new system for him, but other than that, I don't see much change happening. Coming up, Emory Jones is the starter. Do one or more quarterbacks end up transferring? We'll get into that. So, quarterbacks transferring. If Emory Jones is the starter, I believe in my core that Evan Prater maybe will transfer. Ben Bryant will. Because if Emory Jones is the starter, that's going to signify what kind of offense the Bearcats are going to run. If Ben Bryant's the starter, I'm saying Jones probably will stay. If Jones is the starter, that's going to signal to Ben Bryant this is the offense they're going to run, which is dual threat. Bryant is not that, and then he'll transfer. And that's why, again, I think the Bearcats have to name their starting quarterback before the start of fall camp. That's not fair to drag these two through fall camp when they're in their final seasons of eligibility. I get it. This sport is about competition. But you're also, and this is something I really like that Scott Satterfield said on Saturday, they got to have some honest conversations about what the future holds for some of these players. Is it as a Bearcat or is it as a, wherever? Evan Prater has Emory Jones' skill set. He's not great at throwing. He's good at running. If Emory Jones starts, again, that's the direction this offense will go in. I don't think Ben Bryant would have much of a chance if Jones is the starter. Because if you bring in Bryant as the backup, a whole dimension of your offense goes away. Versus if Bryant starts and you have to bring in Emory Jones, you add a dimension to your offense. And you don't necessarily have to have scripted plays because Jones can probably make plays off script with his dual threat abilities. So, Brady Drogosh, he's staying because he hasn't even been developed yet. And don't forget, both Jones and Bryant are in their final season. See, this year, Brady Drogosh, this year can't hurt him because you have two quarterbacks leaving at the top of the depth chart, and you have Evan Prater, who hasn't proved anything yet. So that's what I think will happen if Emory Jones is the starter. Because Bryant does not have the same skill set. Prater does. And then Prater, if he gets playing time, should something happen to Jones, he will stay and compete with Brady Drogosh in 2024 for for the Bearcats starting quarterback. That's what I see happening. I could be wrong, but that's what I believe will happen. Jones starts, Bryant transfers, Prater stays, maybe. And I'm not saying he will. I'm saying there's a good chance he will because of his skill set. Later today on Locked On Bearcats, Russ Heltman will join me for our weekly live room. We'll talk about the spring game, what he thought about it. We'll talk about where he stands on the Bearcats quarterback battle, where he stands on the slew of commitments that the Cincinnati Bearcats got on Wednesday. You want to talk about a big day of recruiting for the Cincinnati Bearcats. The Cincinnati Bearcats were able to land several commits yesterday. Let's start with the biggest of them all. The Cincinnati Bearcats landing a 3-star talent. Let's see. They landed a 3-star linebacker, Simeon Coleman, yesterday. Simeon Coleman, 94th ranked, 944th ranked player nationally, 91st ranked linebacker, was in attendance at the spring game, and this moves the Bearcats up to 22nd nationally on 24/7 Sports with the signing. Coleman is a 6'10", 210-pound frame. 6'10". I'm not sure if that's right. That's what Russ wrote on All Bearcats. But 3-star tight end Gavin Grover committed, and then the biggest commitment this week, I should say, is the 4-star commit from the state of Georgia, and that, of course, goes to 4-star wide receiver, or 4-star linebacker, I should say, Qua Birdsong. It's spelled Qaa Birdsong. So 172nd ranked player nationally, 16th ranked linebacker, 6'1", 185 pounds. And Russ says he reminds him of Ivan Pace Jr., so there you go. He'll join me later today. That'll be podcasted for Friday. I'm on Twitter at Frankie_90 with 2 N's and an ATI. Instagram, AlexFrank9_. Email, alex3frank@gmail.com. Hey, thanks again for making Locked On Bearcats your first listen every day. For you everyday listeners tomorrow on the show, well, that's the podcast form of the live room with Russ Heltman. Thanks again for making Locked On Bearcats your first listen every day. I'm back later this afternoon with Russ right here on Locked On Bearcats. I'm on Twitter at Frankie_90 with 2 N's and an ATI. Instagram, AlexFrank9_. Email, alex3frank@gmail.com. Thanks again for making Locked On Bearcats your first listen every day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Alex Frank for Locked On Bearcats. Have a great rest of your day. Back later today and in podcast form tomorrow right here on Locked On Bearcats.